So,
Morning.
good morning. Good morning. Just to continue along in our discussion, second, of the Kohen. Yeah, it's recording. The Kohen who is discovered to be a halal, do we have to redo his pidyon habens and does he have to return the money? Okay. So, Eladiyesh, so we've been going back and forth. Okay. The Maram Shik was the last thing that we brought, that the Kohen is obligated to return the money for the pidyon haben if he's discovered to be a chalal, because it's actually the same status as a Kohen who discovers that he's a Yisrael. He doesn't, the pidyon haben was not valid. Ella diyesh makom la'ayin bazeh. Dehine bereish makos isa. She'edem sheheidu al ploni shehu ben grushu ben chalutzu v'nimtzu zomimin. He says, but let's go back to a Gemara that so many of us have studied at some point in our lives, the very beginning of Maseches Makos. If witnesses testify about Ploni, that he is not a valid Kohen, he's a chalal, his mother was a divorcee, v'nimtzu zomimin, and then they turn out to be false witnesses, okay? So they were lying. They would try to disqualify or discredit this perfectly legitimate Kohen. Lokin ve'enan mishalm. So the Mishnah says that they get malchus and they don't have to pay. Vehiksha haritzva sham hare be'edusam ratzu lepaslo milakabel truma de me pidyon habenu sharmatnas kahuna vimkena milo mishalmim. So the Ritva asks the question, why shouldn't they have to pay monetary damages to this Kohen? They were seeking to deprive him of monetary gifts, of all future truma, of all future pidyon haben money, of all other kinds of matnos kahuna that he would have been entitled to, Kohen gifts that he would have been entitled to. Shouldn't we assess what we would estimate this Kohen would get over the course of a lifetime and award it to them? The T rates, the Kevin Dahavimidi Delo Keats Piturim. And the Ritva answers is because it's an indefinite amount. And you cannot assess someone if there's an indefinite amount that they owe. Secondly, the Ritva says, not only is it an indefinite amount, it's an uncertain that he would ever be given those gifts, because a Kohen could live his entire life and never receive truma and never receive the pidyon haben money. It all depends on how sociable he is and how well liked he is. So hiksha al zeh ha'orach l'ner the teretz zenicha al truma de me pidyon haben shayim makabel ba'asid. So the orach l'ner says, okay, that works for truma and pidyon haben. Aval kol hakesef shekvar kibel ba'avar harei be'edusa ratzu lahafsido so kesef sheyitztarich lahachzir et kol ma shekibel v'may lokin v'lo mishalmin. But the orach l'ner says, through their intended testimony, they tried to cause him to have to pay back all the money that he had previously collected from pidyon habens and stuff like that. B'tzidei l'taretz the l'shitas Rebbe Yanai b'kiddushin shalomat shekohen she'avad v'nimtza chalal avodas k'shera b'diavad me'apasuk uvasel l'kohen asher yihiyeh bayamim hahem. So he suggests that according to the opinion in kiddushin, that says that if a Kohen does the avoda and it turns out afterwards that he's a chalal, his avoda is still kosher b'diavad, like we learned yesterday. Shahakol talui bizman avodasa, v'kivin sheyakohen bizman avodasa kshera, av shenimsa acher kach shahaya chalal. So if a person was operating under the assumption that he was a Kohen and only was later found out to be a chalal, everything that he has done as a Kohen is still kosher. And therefore, because of arach lener de lefizehu adin lagabe pidyon haben, shahakol toli b'shasa pidyon udelo ke'achalos yor hanal akan tochen devara. And the arach lener concludes that Rav Ben Sion Etlenberg, Etlenberg, he Rav Binyamin, not Rav Ben Sion, and he lived in the 18th century, 18th or 19th century. Okay, Baruch there. Jacob Ettlinger, Yaakov Ettlinger. Yeah, he was. His years are 1798 to 1871. Okay, so he says that you see from here that anything that he did in the past under the guise of a Kohen is legally binding. He says, and if he collects money for a pigeon haben under the assumption that he was a Kohen, and then it's discovered later that he's a Chalal, he doesn't give back the money. Amnam ein lomer shelafi zeh haKohen yuchal liton kimli karebi yanai depater demidivrei harambam shelo kasav pasuk zeh ela barech Hashem chelo mashma delo kaimelon karebi yanai. However, it seems like the Kohen who turns out to be a Chalal wouldn't be able to make that claim, because it seems like we don't paskin like Rabbi Yanai, because the Rambam brings a different pasuk that God will bless his chulin, which implies that it's only for a chalal who did the avoda that it's kosher, but a chalal who took money under the guise of being a kohen would have to give it back. V'ayin sham ba'aruch l'ner shetiritz alikar kushya dari be'edim shlo yadu shakoin kibol kesef pigeon habenu chedoma ayin sham umashma midvar of the kohen shenim sechalot tzarich la'achzir et hakesef shekibol b'pigeon haben. But it seems like in the final analysis that the aruch l'ner is of the opinion that he would have to give the money back. Amna meidach gisa hare hevenu la'el shebeshut yad Eliyahu u'ma'arash engel pasku liftoris hakoyim elakter kol hakesef shekibol avor pigeon haben. But on the other hand, we've already brought opinions in the Achronim who hold that he would not have to give it back. Asher al kain lahalacha, and therefore big machlokes here. Nira shahakoin yuchal liton kimli kahaposkim hasovrim shu pater milachzer lohormis the mea pigeon shekibul mehen ulachatchila lohorm lachzer v'liftos esbenam eisel kohen kosher. And therefore, bottom line is that the Kohen, who turns out to be a Chalal, can say, I paskin like those halachic authorities and say, I don't have to give the money back. So I ain't giving back any money. But the parents still have to try and find another Kohen, because now that we've discovered that the guy's a Chalal, we have to redo all of his pigeon habens. End of story. Now, that will be different if it turns out that he's a Yisrael, like I told you that case yesterday. In a case where the Kohen says, surprise, surprise, I just discovered I'm a Yisrael. Surprise, surprise.
Was Gomer Pyle, was he a Kohen?
No, he's in Israel.
That was Gomer Pyle, that's right. Okay. And I just discovered that I'm a Yisrael. In that situation, he does have to give all the money back. And the parents would certainly have to do another pigeon haben, or if the guy's an adult by that time, he's got to
25
he's got to be poda himself. Yeah. Okay. All right. We've seen something like this before. This is the heebie-jeebies kind of thing, where a person has done something to cause spiritual damage. Through the Gemara says that when you cut your fingernails, a ruach ra'ah, an evil spirit, rests on those fingernails. So you're not allowed to dispose of them in a public area, because a pregnant woman may step on them and miscarry. This is different from our dog, Shaila, where we also talked about a woman miscarrying. It's not a pleasant concept, but this is different. So, chiyuv tashlumin b'mishazark siporin v'gram le'uberet la'apil. What will be the halacha in that situation? What are the legal and financial obligations of the person who discarded his fingernails? Okay. Adam shekotzatz tziporna v'hishlicham al haaretz. A person cut his fingernails, threw them on the ground, va'avra sham isha me'uberet v'darcha al hatzipornayim ve'ipila et ubra. A pregnant woman walked there, stepped on the fingernails, had a miscarriage. Nebach ha'im hazorik chayiv b'tashlumei hanezek. Does the person who dropped his fingernails there have to pay damages?
How would you prove that in court?
How would you prove it? So that's the first thing.
And
Like-
also, she's gotta be barefooted, so shouldn't she be wearing shoes?
Well, who said it has to do with being barefooted?
Travel.
You're making an assumption, Ron, right?
You know, this would apply to like one of these places where people go and have their nails done, right? And they have cutting everyone's nails there. What do they do with them all?
Oh, I thought those Vietnamese women put it in their soup.
You never know.
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Shanghai nails or.
That's what it smells like when they cook their food, yeah.
I'm surprised this was a real Shiloh. These are real Shilohs they had in.
This was a real Shiloh in the basin.
I've had none from people, guys that were from who went off the derek. They say, yeah, this is why I should be from. They always quote this.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, this is what I want to be part of with the toenails. Yeah, where they go, yeah, totally.
I've had a guy come
Makes a
to
lot
me
of
and
sense.
I've had a guy come to me and talk about, I don't want the rabbis telling me which hand I wipe my,
Yeah.
But anyway,
That's-
Adam, what? Adam shekatzatz tziporna v'ishlichem al haaretz. But you want to know something? When you have a regimented life, then everything you do is with purpose. Everything you do is with purpose. It doesn't mean that, whether, we've already learned that when it comes to shadim, which is what a ruach ra'ah is, an evil spirit is a shade, it's another term for it. We've already learned that according to many poskim, you don't have to worry about shadim anymore, that they were banished in the times of the Gemara, that Abaya banished all shadim. But even with that, this is also providing us with a regimented lifestyle that has a certain kind of dignity to it. Don't toss your toenails in the middle of where other people are going to walk. It's disgusting. So this could be interpreted on a natural path also. There's the story in the Gemara in Gittin that talks about a woman who was so fastidious and delicate that she died, because she was starving and she was trying to find something to eat. All she could find was the discarded dates of Reb Tzadok, who would suck the dates because he was too emaciated to eat the dates. He would just suck on them and then throw them. So she found one and she tried to eat it and she died of disgust. This is a real thing that, people should be at a state of being sensitive to these kinds of issues. So even though it sounds arcane, archaic, superstitious and things like that, but there is a certain wisdom to it also. Let's also remember that. But anyway, getting back to our Shaila, the argument, what was it? Joby said, who said that? How do you prove it? You, Moish, how do you prove it? How do you prove, let's say a woman could miscarry for any number of reasons. What is it? The second she steps on the nails, all of a sudden, it's very hard to prove. Hagemara omeret b'masechet nida, chamisha dvarim ha'osa otan mitchayev b'nafsho b'tamo b'rasho. The Gemara says that there are 5 things that if a person does them, he is guilty for having forfeit. In other words, he's placing his life on he's acting irresponsibly with his life and has done a sin or an offense that makes him worthy no longer to live. Ve'echad mehem hanotel tziporno v'zarko l'rishos harabim. One of them is if a person cuts his nails or bites his nails off and throws them into a public thoroughfare. What?
On the subway.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
That's
I've seen
gross.
people sitting there, they're just. They cut their nails.
I was just thinking that.
It's like those
See?
Italian guys.
It's an
walking down the
example.
streets when they
An
go-
example.
when they get a little
Right.
shuggy
So-
out the side.
So I'm a Yid, I'm a Jew, and I was raised with a tradition that goes back thousands of years that tells me that this is vile behavior.
There's nothing wrong with the vile behavior because it is. But when you take it to a level of.
All right, so let's see. I think I have a suspicion that he's going to be putter. Okay. V'chein haGemara omeret b'masechet Moed Katan shlosha dvarim nemru b'tzipornaim. The Gemara says in Moed Katan that 3 things were stated about nails. Hakovran tzaddik, that if you bury them, you're a tzaddik. Vahasorfan chasid, if you burn them, you're pious. Vahazorkan rasha, but you just toss them indiscriminately, you're evil. Shematavor alehan isha ubra v'tapil, lest a pregnant woman walk over them and have a miscarriage. So apparently it's even more holy to burn them, right? Burying them, you're just a tzaddik. You've done the righteous thing. Sorry, you burn them, you've gone above and beyond. That's what a chassid goes above and beyond the letter of the law. It's also brought down in the poskim that flushing them is also as good as burying them, because the whole idea is to make sure that they're not accessible. Yeah. Ubir ha'el Rabba hatam lazehu. The El Rabba says that the reason for all of this is Kevin shekodem shechata adam harishon hayamalbusho tziporim. Oh, this goes back to the original creation of man, he says. We know that there's a medrash that tells us that when Adam was first created, his entire body was nails. In other words, it was like armor, right? Uvizman shechata ve'achal me'etz hadas nifshat mimenu hatziporin mikol haguf v'lo nishar ela rak b'tzipornaim. And when he sinned by eating of the tree, Hashem reduced that armor to just his fingernails and his toenails.
Isn't that why we did the nails?
Yeah. That's why we hold up our fingernails at Havdalah, which is a reminiscent of the original sin.
Was whole body, what was the measures?
That the whole body, instead of soft skin, was hard nails.
Like scabs. Like scabs.
Which is, I don't know, I'm not sure if that would be
Better.
too comfortable, yeah.
Right.
But there's some meaning to it, obviously, that the human being was more durable, stronger. Okay, is really what it means to say. Because Chava was the cause of that sin and causing man to lose that armor, Mashanishar gorim nezek leisha ayin sham. So whatever is left of the human body that is nails, fingernails and toenails, can potentially cause damage to the woman because she represents Chava. So in other words, because of Chava's sin, this could come back to haunt all future women. Avol Rabbeinu Yosef Chaim Olav Shalom B'Sifro Ben Yehoyada Al Masechet Moed Katan Bi'eratam. But the Ben Yehoyada gives a different reason. The kochot achitzonim nidvakim b'tzipornaim, that evil spirits attach themselves to fingernails and toenails. V'lachein he mazikim leubrin keven shatzipornaim heim porin v'ravin. V'lachein heim mazikin laovrin b'priya uravia. He says the reason why these spirits can damage through fingernails and toenails is because it's the only part of your skin that grows continuously. Whereas when you think about it, my skin is not continuously growing. I never have to trim the rest of my skin, but I only have to trim my fingernails and toenails because they're continuously reproducing. Hair is different, but as far as skin, right? Nails are a form of skin. It's a hardened part of your skin. So you should. That's what they say.
Did they grow?
No.
It looks like, because your skin shrinks.
as well. And the skin is the skin and the nails, they're all part of the dermal.
Yes, okay. So his argument is that something that continues to grow, something that continuously grows, can harm someone who's in the process of growing something in her body. That's the connection. Because she is reproducing, this which reproduces can harm her. That's the idea. Amna matzinu kama dvarim shenishtana haruach ra v'lo mazika. However, Rav Shraga says, it's something like I added, is that we find that over the centuries, Ruach Ra, this evil spirit, has changed and no longer causes damage. Kamosha ein nizharim bezugos hayom. The Gemara, for example, says you should never drink 2 glasses of wine. You either drink 1 glass of wine or 3 glasses of wine. So, yeah. So if you go to the pub, and your friends all have two mugs. You say, sorry, my religion requires me to have a third. Yeah. Yeah. So the Gemara asks the question, why is it that we're permitted to have 4 glasses of wine on Pesach? You're not allowed to do things by twos that are multiples of 2s. And one of the answers that the Gemara gives is because it's a Leil Shimurim. It's a night of protection. And God protects us from those evil spirits. But under normal circumstances, you would not allow to drink 4 cups. So anyway, this is an actual legitimate discussion. But the poskim say that the whole law of Zugos no longer applies. I once gave a Shabbos Hagadol drasha on that very topic. V'yesh ladun ha'im tzarach lihizoyer b'tzipor na'im hayom. And therefore, since certain things no longer are in practice, is this halacha even still extant today, that you can't discard fingernails and toenails in public? Hine harifa harash ha'etiku lahalacha es adin hazeh sha'asur lizrok es atzipor na'im shematabor aleim isha muberes. So first of all, the Rush and the Rif both do bring this down lahalacha. Mashma tisvir lahushes enohigam bizman hazeh, which implies that they hold that it applies even today. Amnam yesh la'ayin, but we have to look more into this. Ki morin b'shulchan aruch lo hizkir din zeh. The Mechaber in Shulchan Aruch does not mention it, doesn't bring it down. Aval kvar kasav b'shut salmas chayim shahadavar barur sheyesh lihizaher b'chol ha'azharot shenizkaru b'shas af shalohu v'ula halacha b'Shulchan Aruch. But this Chashav Sefer Salmas Chayim brings down that anything that the Gemara says you should be careful about because of evil spirits, because of supernatural harm, should be observed even when it's not brought in the Shulchan Aruch. V'yadua masha haya omer hachazon ish, the masha lo yadua bizmanenu alisha muberes shemapila derich al tzipor. He says the Chazon Ish was once quoted as saying, the fact that there's no medical evidence that a woman can miscarry by stepping on fingernails, shezeh michlal hester panim. He says it's because God has hid his face in later generations and does not manifest himself using supernatural criteria. But the Chazon Ish said it's still halacha, and you have to be careful about it. So, and by the way, it brings from Rav Steinman, who says the same thing as well, and the Mishnah Brura brings this halacha down. There are a lot of poskim who bring this halacha down. And therefore, lachein lahalacha, therefore, from a halachic standpoint, pashat sha'asur lizrok es atzipornaim b'makom sha'alulim la'avor sham b'nei adam. Halachically, it's asur. You cannot discard your fingernails in a place where people will walk. V'im avda la'adam tziporin echas ve'ino motza, tzarich l'tataot et hashetach kidei lahaziz ota me'hamakom shenafla. He says, if a person, and this, I'm sure this happens to everybody, you're cutting your nails, and as a good Jew, you want to do the halachically correct thing, so you collect the fingernails in a tissue or whatever it is, and you throw it in the toilet afterwards. However, once in a while, you get a renegade fingernail, and it
You can't find
it.
And it shoots off.
It shoots off, yeah. So what do? Halachically, you're supposed to sweep the area where you think the nail fell, because by dislodging it from the place where it originally fell, you also dislodge the Ruach Ra, the evil spirit. Because the Mekubalim say that the fingernail can only cause damage if it is in the place where it originally fell. And if you dislodge it from that place, it will not cause any future damage. They say a story about the Chafetz Chaim, that once, I guess maybe he was cutting his nails in the mikveh, and he lost a fingernail. And he was so concerned that maybe, that evening, a woman who was pregnant would go to the mikveh for some reason, and she might step on it. And he paid the mikveh attendant to do a full cleanup of the entire mikveh, and he paid her for that, so that there would be no fear that someone would step on his fingernail. but it's better to just sweep, but it's just okay to sweep the room. Ki yesh omrim sheyitachin rak im hishlicham chutz l'cheder zeh nikra shinoi. He says it's better to sweep out the entire room because some say that dislodging it isn't just enough to sweep it from one space to another. You have to remove it from the room entirely. I guess there's a sefer on halachos having to do with pregnancy, and this is discussed there. V'chein dan sham im be'isha she avra al tziporen v'nigram la hapala. And he deliberates on this very question. If a woman does pass over a fingernail and it causes her to miscarry, hayim yechola litvoes misha zarkas atziporen b'tvias nezikin kevin shebiglala yepila. Does she have a financial claim against the guy who released that nail there? V'ayin b'sefer kilas yankib shekosov liftar b'zeh. And the stipler says you're putter. Why? Mitam sheyesh litzuras hezek kazeh din bor. He says because this has the status of bor in the Rishus Harabim, in a public area, like digging a pit. Ulahalacha por bater midmei velados kimavor bebava kama ayin sham. And the Gemara in Bava Kama says that if a woman miscarries by falling into a pit, the person who dug the pit is pater. Va'od pilpil sham akilas yankiv bedin hezek al yedei devar seguli hayim efshar lechayev al pivo lo. He also adjudicates in the same responsum that if a person causes damage using some kind of supernatural effect, is that something that you can hold liable the person who did some kind of supernatural thing? And he ends up saying that using supernatural stuff that causes damage can be held liable. But that's only when you can verify that that's how the damage occurred. But with fingernails and the like, we have no proof that the damage was caused through a fingernail. And therefore, we have to say that the person who discarded his fingernails is pater. And he elaborates on this point. And that is what is brought down in that Sefer Toras Ha'ubar. So therefore, we cannot hold the person liable. So let's just, with the remaining moment that we have, he says, V'hosiv Toras Ha'ubar otam liftor, deyesh armim sha'achiv al demei havlados, urak keshe hika ota beveit hahi rayon. He says, the whole idea that if I cause a woman to miscarry, I have to pay for damages. The Torah says that that's in a case where a woman is stricken by blunt force or something like that, and that causes her to miscarry. But he demonstrates that when a woman is caused to miscarry through some other means, then the person who caused her to miscarry cannot be held liable. V'chein pasak b'shut mishnah halachos v'ayin sham shedan ha'im chayiv bazeh b'dinei shamayim. And Rav Menashe Klein says the same thing in Mishnah halachos, and he deliberates over whether or not you could hold the person liable b'dinei shamayim. In other words, is there a heavenly penalty to this guy for causing a woman to miscarry? Okay, we'll have to hold it here for today.
Rabbi,
Yes.
we're talking about the hezek being from the spirit, the bad spirits, but isn't there a physical danger because of the sharpness of the nails?
Yeah, that's not enough to cause a woman to miscarry, though. The physical harm, that the most it'll do, it'll she'll just say ouch from that. That's not going to cause her to miscarry.
Oh, because I was thinking maybe she'd fall and miss.
No. It's not. It has nothing to do with her being injured by it physically.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.